Good morning. Happy New Year. Wherever you are, Happy New Year to 2023. And welcome to the Science of Mind class here at CSLDallas. I'm Dr. Petra, and I am surrounded by fabulous art by our beloved Terry Becker. She's done some amazing art. She's also the the lead of our Sacred Space team. So our Sunday morning altars is always their creation. Terry is an award-winning interior designer and clearly an amazing artist. So always love to have our new art on the first day of the month. So we are starting our next chapter. We're blazing through the introduction. We are on chapter 3, What It Does, the introduction to the science of mind. And there is some really amazing thoughts. There are some really amazing thoughts in this first section under what it does. So we've talked about the thing itself, and we've talked about the way it works. And so this one is entitled What It Does. What you'll notice is that it's sometimes hard to talk about one aspect of the infinite without referencing all the other aspects. But what is being worked with here in this introduction is the nature of reality. The second piece is like the creative process, how it works. This one, what it does is the idea of how we participate in it, and the last part of the introduction, how to use it, will continue with that portion of the idea, how we participate in the nature of reality and this co-creative process. So I love this very first sentence. We should approach the study of the science rationally, never expecting to derive any benefit from it that its principle does not contain. And how many of us hope for divine intervention? We hope that somehow we'll be saved, we'll be rescued, God will take pity on us, or the universe will swoop down and do something for us. But as we read in the previous chapter, the infinite can't do anything for us, but it must do it through us, right? And so that's really what whole section here is going to focus on. We cannot derive any benefit from the principle that it does not itself contain. For while it is true that we are immersed in an infinite intelligence, I'm going to keep translating the word mind to consciousness, because that's really what it's being talked about, but they didn't really use that term back then when this book was written. We are immersed in an infinite intelligence, a consciousness that knows all things. It is also true that this intelligence can acquaint us with its ideas only as we are able and willing to receive them. Now, one of the things we're going to notice in this chapter is that while we speak a lot about intentionality and the directive use of the law, we speak about manifestation and all of these things, this chapter really focuses on how everything starts with receptivity. Everything starts with us being receptive to the truth of the nature of reality, and us being receptive to the ideas that are being impressed upon us, or the impulse of life. And we make a mistake if we think the science of mind is only about manifestation. It's only about what I want and what my will says is the way it should be. There's this profound dance that's happening all the time. And it begins with the impulse of life, which is showing up as us. And the very first thing that we need to do is to allow it to move through us. The divine mind is infinite, or the divine consciousness is infinite and contains all knowledge and wisdom. But before it can reveal its secrets, it must have an outlet. This outlet we shall be compelled to supply through our own receptive mentalities. We supply the outlet for the revelation of the secrets of nature. Now, not that it's not being presented to us in nature and in life all the time, right? It's happening all the time in the mountains and in the meadows and in the forests and everywhere that creation is going on. But it requires an outlet for the secrets to be revealed. What that means is it requires consciousness to see consciousness. It requires consciousness to recognize the nature of consciousness. Otherwise, it's simply consciousness being, ising. I like to use the word, it's just ising. A tree is just ising. It's not necessarily self-reflecting on what it means to be a tree. It's not cursed with that right level of constant self-analysis, self-awareness, like what is going on. It's simply being that. And wherever self-awareness is arising, whether that is in other animals or somewhere across the universe in other galaxies, wherever self-awareness is arising, consciousness is becoming aware of consciousness. That's what it means to reveal its secrets. And it needs an outlet. It needs consciousness to be able to see itself. All invention, art, literature, government, law, and wisdom that has come to us, to humanity, has been given to it through those who have deeply penetrated the secrets of nature and the mind of God, or the consciousness of the One, right? It's the revelation that is moving through us, through an individual, through humanity as a whole, through groups of people, through any individual person that is opening themselves to this revelation of the nature of reality. Perhaps the simplest way to state the proposition is to say that we are surrounded by a consciousness or intelligence that knows everything, that the potential knowledge of all things exists in this consciousness, that the abstract essence of beauty, truth, and wisdom coexist in the consciousness of the universe, that we also coexist in it and may draw from it. But what we draw from it, we must draw through the channel of our own consciousness. A unity must be established, a conscious connection must be made before we can receive the benefit which the greater consciousness is willing to reveal or impart to us. So there is this constant dialectic that's going on in the science of mind. We are the universe showing up as individuals, and we are individuals that are drawing out of the universe through our own consciousness into the world. And we can no longer say something outside of us is in control or is doing it, or we can no longer allow ourselves the story of victimization as we are recognizing that we coexist in this consciousness. And consciousness is revealing itself to consciousness. We are the outlet for that revelation. And the point is that all of evolution has been evolving to the place where consciousness has evolved an organism or an organ that can actually house consciousness to reveal itself. This is what it's doing in the entire process of evolution, is to come to the point where self-awareness begins to take place. Now, I love this next sentence, and then we're going to stop and see how this is, what this is stirring in you. The Spirit can give us only what we can take. It imparts of itself only as we partake of its nature. It can tell us only what we can understand. The infinite knowingness becomes our wisdom only in such degree as we embody its intelligence. And so it is our job as individuals to expand ourselves into the universal as much as it is the universe's intelligence, its job to impart to us the impulse of life itself, Do you see? It's a constant dance moving in the continuum of oneness. And it can give us only that which we can take. Now, this is not the normal taking that we think of as I'm going to get mine before you get yours. This is the taking up of these outrageously amazing ideas, taking them up as possibilities, entertaining the possibility that Spirit is actually seeking to impart life to us, seeking to impart revelation, seeking to impart wisdom. That we want to take that up. There's so many ways we could say that. Take up the space in consciousness. Take up our place in consciousness. Take this reality as a not just possibility, but an actuality that is the truth of life. To take all of that, to take it and own it, to partake of that nature. And that's what begins to allow the wisdom and intelligence of the infinite, of consciousness as a whole, to reveal itself to us and to impart the impulse that is flowing to us and through us into the world. Which is why Terry's art looks like this. And Val Guion, we had her last month, her art looks completely different. Right? It's the impulse of life. It's the revelation of the secrets of the universe being revealed through an individual processing, working, filtering, feeling, sensing, and then being the outlet. Right? And whether that's in art that we hang on our walls, or government, or business, or raising children, or saving the planet, whatever that is, do you see, excuse me, we all do that individually and uniquely. But the more that we can recognize that that's what's happening, this is Spirit showing up, this is the impulse of life showing up through a particular individualization, a particular place where the universe is awakening to itself, then we take as much as we can embody, as much as we partake of the nature of reality, to the extent that we can begin to open our mind and our heart and our senses to the possibility, to the revelation that this is in fact what's going on. And so what it does is, on the macrocosmic level, it's running the universe, and on the microcosmic level of the place where consciousness is awakening, it's awaiting our recognition, right? Knocking on the door of the inside of our consciousness, on our soul and our heart, waiting for us to open the door, waiting for us to take that step, to take that opening, to take our place as co-creators. Okay, this is a far-reaching thought and should be carefully scrutinized. Oh, this thought. It has been said that we can know God only so far as we can become God. This is a far-reaching thought and should be carefully scrutinized. It is to be taken figuratively and not too literally. For we cannot really become God. We're not going to become the macrocosm and run the universe, but we can and do partake of the divine nature. And the universal does personify itself through us in varying degrees according to our receptivity to it. So again, it's really astonishing how many times in the science of mind the terms receptive and accept are in here in conjunction with direction, intention, manifestation, demonstrating, choosing, volition, right? And our job is to choose to take, to choose to expand, to choose to imagine that we are partaking of the nature of the infinite consciousness, and then feeling, sensing, hearing, seeing, however we do that, how that is seeking to impart itself through us, which is then ultimately our contribution, our gift, our contribution, whether it's to our own lives, our families, our workplaces, the nation, the world. That's the gift that we're adding to the expression of life as a whole. So we're going to stop there on this fabulous January 1st, this New Year's, this new moment, right? And imagine that we're taking this up in a whole new way. So we're going to see what thoughts you have, what is stirring in your consciousness, in your mind, in your heart about this. Is this easy? Is this hard? How does this settle with you? And to say good morning, we're going to turn it over to Ryan. Good morning, Ryan.
Well, good morning, Dr. Petra, and Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everybody here in the room. And Happy New Year to everybody all around the globe who is watching us. And I see some friends, and good evening to you on the other side of the globe. I'm glad that you're able to join us on, guess it would be January 2nd over there.
Well, if it's nighttime, it's still maybe January 1st, it's the evening
close
of
to
January
2nd.
Oh, is it? Is it January 2nd already?
Well, it should be here in just a little bit for those folks.
Wow.
So, yeah, time is going by. So this is an interactive discussion, and for those who are here in the room, to participate, just simply raise your hand, and the iconic Richard has made it with us to 2023 as well too. He'll help me by handing off the microphone, and if it's over here to my left, I will hand you the microphone, but I might do it a little slowly because, you know, I'm just like that. Anyways, for those who are here online with us via Zoom, welcome, and you can participate too by hitting the raise your hand icon located down below, and then that way I can call you into the room. And for those who are watching us on Facebook Live, make sure to pitch your questions and comments inside of the chat, and I'll bring that into the room as well. And for those questions and comments that come inside the chat, I just want to remind everybody, I do my best to keep those anonymous, so that way we can have a safe container of spiritual growth. So I do see that we do have somebody online here who has their hand raised, but before we go there, would anybody here in the room have a question, comment? All right, we're going to go ahead and ask Danita. Do you want to go and unmute yourself and join the conversation?
Good morning, Danita.
Hi. I just have a question. I'm just starting out with the signs of mine, and I'm kind of glad y'all doing the beginning of the book because that's what I need. But also, this maybe, I don't know if this is quite on the subject, but what about bad choices that you make? Because I'm dealing with some bad choices I make.
What about, can you say more about your question? What about bad choices?
Well, I know that, I used to be blaming everybody for what's happened in my life. Mm-hmm. And I realized that, you know, what I'm doing now, what's happening to me now is kind of a result of bad choices I made when I was younger.
Right.
And, I mean, and it's really kind of hard because it's kind of hard to get therapy for that because of my income. But do I fix myself when it comes to that? Do I dwell on it? How do I get past that? I know that I made the bad choices. I'm not blaming anybody but myself. But how does Science of Mind address somebody trying to get past that? Yeah,
it's a great question. Thanks, Danita. It's a great question. And how we get past it is by making new choices. Right? The universe responds. So the universe responded to the choices that we made before. They're only bad choices because the consequences weren't what we wanted, weren't what we hoped for, or did actual harm and damage. Right? And so what happens is we learn from that, or hopefully we've learned from that. So we stop making those choices and we start making new ones. So that's what is so profound about the law, is that it doesn't hold anything against us. Right? So I don't know, I'm going to make, so an analogy or a way we can think about this is that our life is like a balloon. And if you simply blow it up with your breath, right? You keep blowing it up with your breath, you tie it off, the balloon drops. That's what it does. And so if you're choosing to continue to blow it up with the breath, the balloon is simply going to land on the floor. But you could choose differently. You can blow it up with helium. And if you blow it up with helium, it's going to rise. In and of itself, helium or your breath is neither rewarding or punishing you for what the choice you've made. It's simply that if you don't provide it with something that's lighter than air, the balloon is going to fall. The moment you put something different in, the balloon rises. And of course, any analogy is going to break down if we push it too far. So we're going to leave that analogy there, right there. We're not going to push it any further. But do you see, the balloon doesn't say, well, wait, why did you spend all that time blowing it up with your air when if you wanted it to rise, you should have done it with helium, 12 minutes ago. The balloon doesn't have an opinion about it. The air doesn't have an opinion about it. The helium doesn't have an opinion about it. It's just working in a lawful manner. This is what we mean by, we're going to get to this this little section here called the universe is impersonal. The law is simply responding. So the way that we the way that we deal with bad choices is, one, we stop making them, and two, we start making good choices. Now, clearly that is easier said than done, right? I mean, there's just no question about it. And so that's why we have spiritual practices, that's why we have classes, that's why we have all kinds of things online to over and over and over and over again remind us of how it works, how we can participate it, to get tools and to find lots of ways in which we can make new choices. Now, the other side of that coin is the teaching is love and law. Love and law. So the love part, right, is forgiveness and compassion. We have to have forgiveness and compassion for ourselves and for others who make bad choices, because we do so simply because we don't know any better. We think those choices are, in fact, going to be the things that are going to make us happy, make us feel better, give us what we want. And then, of course, we discover that some choices do that, and some choices don't. And that is us being educated. That is our choices. We are getting to learn about the power of our choices. And so this is why we're in spiritual community together. Like for exactly that reason, and to continually grow in our ability to take the place that is ours, which is consciously co-creating through our choices, as opposed to choosing things out of the ignorance of their outcomes or the ignorance of the fact that we aren't victims. So good for you for the first step, which is to know you're not a victim. The second step, to learn about these things. The third step is now beginning to practice some of the spiritual practices. And so just keep coming back. Life will be different, right? Some of you have been around for a while, right? It takes time. It takes time, but day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, it is extraordinary how different life can become. So thanks for your question. We have one here in the room.
Yeah, go right ahead. Thanks.
Hi, this is JL.
Hi,
Happy New
JL.
Year's. I thought that was a great question to start with, because when you started reading about the consciousness, and the more conscious we become, we can kind of see things a lot larger in perspective. And so that also has been really beneficial in my life, because like everyone, we've made bad choices, right? And so you do have to pay for your bad choices, so to speak. But it's once you become conscious of the fact that spirit is moving through you, and that you are connected to this much larger miracle than just your choice. Mm-hmm. Right? It's so much bigger. The universe is so much bigger than just our choices. And when we realize that, then we see the power that comes from shifting our choices.
Beautiful.
So-
I love that. Thank you, JL, right? Because the first thing is we start recognizing that our choices, and we don't even have to label them bad, and we don't have to say, but they didn't have the outcome that we had hoped. They've maybe done harm, maybe done some damage, right? And so we start learning to make new choices. I'm not going to eat that sugar. I'm not going to take that drink. I'm not going to say that hateful thing. Whatever it is. I'm not going to, run away from something because I can't deal with it, whatever, right? We start making our choices. But the next step, and JL, you really talked about that, right? The next step is as we become conscious of the fact that we're conscious, and as we become conscious that this is the nature of reality, do you see, this is the whole point of this particular part of this chapter, is we begin to become receptive to the fact that love is seeking to express itself through us all the time. And life is seeking to express itself through us all the time. That is the nature of reality. And so then our choices become less about, I've got to fix this particular thing, and more about being receptive to how life is seeking to impart itself through us as us. And then we ourselves are aligning ourselves with that impulse, with that impress. And we're choosing that instead of the thing that we used to always do, thinking that it was going to make us feel better. Do you see? That's where our choice comes in. I'm going to choose what I used to always do, or I'm going to choose what I think I know, or I'm going to choose what I think I'm going to figure out, or I'm going to choose how I'm going to control the situation, or I'm going to choose to feel the impress of life. I'm going to choose to align myself with love, or with expression, or with self-fulfillment. Do you see? That's where we still have to make that choice. But now we are taking from that which is pouring through us, now we are taking it and making it our own, and then having it express in choices that are aligned, right? That's what it means then to be aligned. Our choices are in alignment with the way that we experience that impress of life, the impulse of love as it is moving through us. And our choices may over time become less and less specific and more generally the choice to be present to that, although we can, of course, at any time decide something very specific and make choices around that. There's nothing that says we can't do that, but even those choices will end up being more in alignment because we will have learned that choices that are more aligned actually have better outcomes. They have more long-term fulfillment. They create more long-term contribution, and they have a much longer lasting effect in our own lives and in the lives of the people around us. So yes, exactly, right? That's the next step, which is the reason why we're constantly wanting to grow our consciousness and partake more and more of the nature of reality. The more that we can partake of the nature of beauty and wisdom and truth, the more that we can take beauty and wisdom and truth to ourselves, then the more that our choices are that. They're choices that are for beauty and wisdom and truth. But it's our beauty, the way that it speaks to us and the way that wisdom pours out of us, and the way that truth comes to us. Do you see? And so we become the outlet for the revelation of the secrets of the universe. I love that idea, right? And then our lives become the message. And in the next couple of paragraphs, somewhere along the way, it's going to talk about, are we listening to the sermons in the stones? Do we see the way the universe is operating? And then are we seeing it the way it's operating in our own lives? Is our life the message? Right? Or are we still trying to grasp and figure out and control and manage and work it and make it happen? Or either blame, which good enough, you're not doing it anymore, Danita, either blame or shame. Boop, 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 me, I'm terrible, terrible, terrible. I can't believe I did it again, right? And then we trade our metaphysical guilt for our Catholic or Jewish guilt, whatever guilt we grew up with, right? And so now we don't feel guilty in that way, but now we feel guilty in a whole other way. So good. All right, we're going to turn back to you, Ryan, and see what other comments there or opportunities there are out there.
Well, it looks like everybody's still waking up in this side of the world. I see our friends to the north hanging out with us. So shout out to those who are in Canada.
Yay.
I think we're looking to read a little bit more. Do you want to take us maybe another paragraph?
I will. Thank you. Okay, so this is this next section. The universe is impersonal. And this is, you know, it falls right on the heels of this conversation about choices. Right? It's impersonal. The universe is not going to say, wait, don't do that. Don't open that door. Right? Don't you want a soundtrack? I've always thought there's a number of things that I would talk to the management about how the universe is organized. And one of those is we don't have a soundtrack. We don't have the soundtrack that tells us that, you know, that person who's walking into our life is going to make a mess. We don't have the soundtrack that says, don't open that door. Or the soundtrack that says, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. The universe is impersonal, so it's just going to say yes to whatever it is. And that's the bad news. It's going to say yes to those bad choices, the choices that aren't aligned. But the good news is that it's impersonal. It gives alike to all. It is no respecter of persons. It values each alike. Its nature is to impart, ours to receive. When we stand in the light, we cast a shadow across the pathway of our own experience. Emerson advises we get our bloated nothingness out of the way of the divine circuits. I love that, right? Our bloated nothingness, which is basically our belief that we can figure it all out and control everything and manage everything and make it all work and be in charge of everything, right? But what it means, it is no respecter of persons, doesn't mean it doesn't respect us as individuals. It means that it's the law. Everybody gets the same access, the same use. Gravity doesn't say, oh, I don't think I'm going to hold you to the ground this morning. Everybody else but you, right? Or everybody but your family. Right? Laws are simply that. They are principles of how nature operates. And if we understand them, we can use them, right? That's what it means to obey the laws. If we understand, right, if in electricity, if you hook your light up incorrectly, if you switch the wires around, it either doesn't work or it sets it on fire. One or the other, right? But if you obey, positive to positive, negative to negative, ground it out, and then your light works. The law of electricity has no opinion. And it has no opinion about whether you're a good electrician, a bad electrician, whether you know anything about electricity or not, doesn't care about your background or anything else about you. It simply operates. It simply operates. Our job is to understand how it operates, to learn how the nature of reality works, and that we can actually learn and be receptive to this understanding. It is impersonal. When we stand in the light, we cast a shadow across the pathway of our own experience, right? And it's really kind of the good news, bad news. The bad news is we created our own reality. The bad news is that we made bad choices, or we just made choices on autopilot. We might even say, rather than bad choices, we might say we made ignorant choices, because we didn't understand what the long-term consequences were going to be or how it was going to play out, right? But as we get our bloated nothingness out of the way, the law continues to respond. It continues to say yes. So it says yes to our choices that are in alignment just as much. And so I think this is sometimes really challenging. It's really challenging to use the terms law and impersonal, especially if we come from a marginalized background, if we're people of color, women, places, anybody who has had the experience of being marginalized or feeling like the law obviously isn't impersonal and justice isn't blind. But we have to separate out the human laws and the human engagement with the laws from principles, the principles of science, the principles of the nature of reality. And so while we use the term law, the law of cause and effect, we might, if it helps us, use the term principle, so that we can disassociate ourselves from the actually unjust way in which human laws are often interpreted and the way that they are impacting different people in different ways, right? And that can be a real challenge. Just like the word God can be a challenge. We have old ideas, or we have images of what God means. We can have a construct of what the word law means that is very human-based. And so we're constantly reminding ourselves that we're talking about the nature of reality, not the nature of the way humans are still ignorantly manifesting and misusing our legal and justice systems. Okay, I think that's really important. And this is where, in the science of mind, we really seek to have critical thinking. Critical not as in criticizing, right? But critical in what are we talking about? What are we thinking about? Where is my thinking going around the things that I'm hearing and learning? And parsing some of these things out. And if we need to, we have to find another word that helps us get out of an old idea and into a new one, that helps us release the image or the feeling tone that comes with a word. Try some new words that help us access this impersonal nature of the law in a very real way. So we can talk about we can talk about the principle, like the principles of science that are utterly replicatable, right? If you do a scientific experiment, it has to be replicatable and duplicatable by anybody, anywhere. And that's what makes it a scientific experiment and a duplicatable study, right? That's how you know that you're beginning to reveal something that is true. And if it's not replicatable, then it's not good science. Do you see? That's what it means, this impersonal nature of the law, that it is no respecter of persons. Doesn't mean that we're loved any less, right? Doesn't mean we're not respected. It's that it's a principle. All right, we have another comment here.
Sorry, I could have got up. JL again, sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
I was thinking about how I raise my kids, right? And when you're really little, you say, you can do anything you put your mind to. Absolutely anything. And there's no limitations on that, right? And so they try the first thing, or they walk in, and then the next thing is, my son he thinks he can climb on anything and flip over everything. So, and then that changed into one time I saw him, and he wanted to take the train and go the opposite way on the track. And I said, well, it doesn't really work like that. Well, he proved me wrong. And so I thought to myself, if we don't lose that as we get older and we grow, and consciously understand that, yes, you can, anybody, any age, anytime, you can do whatever you put your mind to, because you are infinite spirit. You are this life force, right? And it
Yes.
doesn't care what you decide to do.
Right.
So you decide.
Right. Right. And it's completely supportive. Beautiful. Thank you, JL. And I love it how much our kids teach us. So Karen showed me a video the other day. I hope I get this right. I want to say that it was, sometimes my dyslexia jumps up and bites me. So the woman was either 89 years old, but what I really want to say is she was 98. And she was doing a routine on the parallel bars. You know what the parallel bars are, right? They're the even, there's this, not the uneven, but the even parallel bars. And she was in her little leotard, and she was doing a routine, standing on her shoulders, rolling around, doing the thing, like they do in the Olympics, only not maybe quite at that level. So if she wasn't 98, she was 89, but I really want to say she was 98 years old. But I'm guessing she probably started that after she retired from her work. Could have been 20 years of putting her mind to it, and here she is doing this routine. And we think, oh, I'm going to get old and I'm going to have all these aches and pains and I'm not going to be able to do it, and I'm na, right? And so it takes time and effort, but it's the choosing over and over and over again, the choosing and the believing that things are possible. Now, of course, you can always re-choose. You can decide that's really not something I want to spend my time on, or I want to spend my mental and spiritual coin on. You can decide to make our choices. We can decide to make our choices in any area, in any way that feels as though it's a contribution and that it's fulfilling. And I do think that one of the most challenging things is that over time, our choices, we think that the lesson is that our choices are limited, right? Over time, we think that the lesson is our choices are limited. And there's a place of wonder and awe and possibility that keeps stretching the boundaries. I mean, look at people who are, who have no legs. Those women, I saw another woman, she had those beautiful curved, they're not, they're prosthetics, those pieces of metal, and racing in track and field. Oh my God, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Now she didn't like magically regrow legs, but she put her mind to something and decided that there was something else she was going to do. Think about the ballerina who lost her foot in the Boston Marathon bombing. And now she's completely redone her routines because the prosthetic that she has on that foot is stronger and can hold her better and hold her upright. So she's redoing her routine. So all of her really, really hard movements actually are on that foot. And it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary, right? And so it's not like she regrew her foot. It's not like, and I'm sure that all the, there's challenge and there's hardship and there's disappointment, but we put our mind to it. We keep choosing and re-choosing and choosing again and choosing again and choosing again. And if we're willing to stay committed to how life is seeking to express through us, right? We keep re-choosing in that way. The impersonal nature of the law is going to continue to find ways for doors to open, for miracles to happen, right? And so what we want to do also is to reflect on, it's not just individual, but this is also about, this is how we heal racism. This is how we make a difference on our planet. This is how we get consciousness to change. So we use less plastic. So we stop having all the emissions, so that we stop deforesting our planet, right? We have the same opportunity as humanity as we have individually. So every time we say to ourselves, I just don't know how this is going to work out, it's not possible, I can't imagine, do you see, we've believed in the limitation. And the universe can only give us what we can take. So let's take lives that work and a world that works, right? And more love and more joy for everybody, more prosperity and a whole happy, healthy earth that we can share together. Let's have that be what this year is about for 2023. All right, so we look forward to those of you who are going to join us for our Burning Bowl ritual here in another 30 minutes. It's a beautiful ritual. Love to have you participate online or in person. We have a little lunch here, and then I'm doing an in-person only immersive experience called Emergence. So if you're not signed up, do come and join us join me if you're in the DFW area. So we want to welcome anybody who's here for the first time. I think you've been here with us before. Yes, I know you. Okay, good. So we have Julia back there if you have any questions, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Have a beautiful first week of 2023. Bye for now.
All right.
Yay.